Hey, welcome to SI Now. I'm Amy Campbell, joined by Robin Lundberg, and it's only Wednesday, but we plan to finish the week strong, unlike the Warriors. That's right, in the final game of the regular season, the reigning champs got whooped by 40 points at the hands of the Jazz, and it wasn't even close. Utah led by double digits for nearly the entire game. The Warriors are limping into the postseason, going 7-10 in their last 17 games. Robin, are the Dubs actually in real trouble?
They might be. Look, I'm not going to make a big deal of the loss to the Jazz. In fact, that might be a good thing for them because they avoid Utah, Oklahoma City in the first round. And talk about playing for nothing. Golden State has been playing for nothing for a little while now. But we've seen a bigger picture of the Warriors without Steph Curry, and it is not great. Somewhere along the way, Steph Curry became underrated. Because when Durant got there, people talked about him like he's their best player and the second best player in the league. But when Curry is off the court, they are a totally different team. My pet stat is, when he's on the court, they're the best offense of all time. When he's off the court, they are a below average offense this season in those minutes. And we've seen them with Curry and without Durant. They won a title. They won 73 games. So it's a big problem, and it's sort of stunning the fall off they have without Steph Curry.
I completely agree. I don't read into end of regular season statistics there, those numbers 7 and 10 in their last 17 games. What concerns me about that, though, is that they're missing Steph Curry for 16 of 17 of those games, 6 and 10 without Curry, and that is the bigger narrative to me, is how critical he is, especially with a team loaded with all-stars. They should be able to do it without him.
Yeah, how can you go from prohibitive favorites to being in danger of losing in the first round? Yeah. Donovan Mitchell was a part of that Jazz win over the Warriors, but before the game, he took the Rookie of the Year debate to new levels, throwing some hoodie shade at Ben Simmons, rocking the definition of rookie across his chest. Rookie, an athlete playing his or her first season as a member of a professional sports team. Those became fighting words on social media, with even the dictionary weighing in, asking if they needed clarification on the definition of the word playing. Ben Simmons had some words of his own after the Sixers win over the Hawks.
I think if his argument is that I'm not a rookie, if that's the only argument he has, I'm in pretty good shape then. So there's a rule in the NBA for a reason. Yeah. I'm not going to wear a sweatshirt tomorrow, though.
So whose side are you on?
First of all, I love this. I think it's hilarious, and I love that Donovan Mitchell is stirring the pot there a little bit. I'm on Donovan Mitchell's side here, but I will say, if I were him and I wanted to legitimately claim this award, I don't want it on a technicality, which is, oh, well, my competition was ruled out. I want to earn it based on my play. I do think he has earned it, and I do think it is unfair that Ben Simmons has, that classic argument of he's had a year of NBA coaching and NBA nutrition and conditioning and workouts and all of that. I think that's valid, and I do think that that is fair. But what most excites me about this is I would love to start this beef between these two quote-unquote rookies. It's great for the NBA overall to have this little bit of a rivalry going between these guys.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, it adds to the Twitter drama and us being able to talk about it. But Ben Simmons won the day. I mean, I think he should win Rookie of the Year, and his response was perfect. Oh, you don't have an actual argument, bro. You're trying to get me here. And let's clear some stuff up for a second. First of all, he's eligible as a rookie. Second, let's not act like he was playing. This guy had a broken foot last year, so he wasn't playing in the NBA. There's actually an argument to be made that Mitchell got more experience playing high-level college ball than Ben Simmons did sitting on the sideline, even if he was around a professional team.
I don't know if you can compare college resources to an NBA team's resources, but I think it's a great argument on both sides, and I think the rivalry.
Well, we know Louisville ain't exactly, keeping things clean over there.
Let's be honest. Well, we will see both of these rookies in the playoffs. We'll also see the Rockets in the postseason, but apparently it is not championship or bust for Coach Mike D'Antoni. Houston is rolling into the postseason with the best record in the NBA and in franchise history, but D'Antoni says not winning the title won't take away from what the team has accomplished this season, saying, quote, "I don't buy it is all about the rings because there are a lot of guys that got rings that can't play a lick." Robin, what? Please tell me you do not agree with this.
Well, that quote itself I don't think is the worst, that part of it, because I don't think it is ring or bust for the Rockets. But playoffs, that is something that is going to define this team. I mean, Mike D'Antoni is out of his mind if he doesn't think that he, Chris Paul, and James Harden aren't going to be judged by their playoff performance. Obviously, the goal for them is to win the championship. But if circumstances go a certain way and they play great and they lose to a great team in 7 games, I don't think that will be how they are ultimately judged. But if they fall flat, people are going to point at D'Antoni with the Suns and now D'Antoni with the Rockets. People are going to say Harden is a regular season guy and not a playoff guy. And, of course, people are going to point to Chris Paul's previous playoff failures as well. So this team will absolutely be judged on what they do in the postseason.
Yeah, I think that larger narrative that you mentioned is really important because all of these guys do have something to prove. But personally, I hate to see a coach talk like this. I don't think it's a good look and it's not a good attitude. I want you going in there firing on all cylinders. And the other thing I think about is the Golden State Warriors 73-win team. We mentioned it early. What's the narrative of that team? Well, they lost to LeBron up 3-1 in the finals.
Yeah, you don't want to be the team to have this great sort of season and then
right. The narrative is that was a letdown.
Squander it. We're far from the playoffs in baseball, but the Red Sox have started the season in a way that sure makes it look like they'll be there when the playoffs do start. Boston smacked the Yankees 14-1 and has already built a 4.5-game lead in the AL East at 9-1, with the Yanks under 500 at 5-6. Are the Red Sox better or the Yankees worse than we thought?
Yes, I think the answer is yes. I think the Red Sox are pretty good, and maybe people outside of Boston fans, of course, haven't been giving them enough credit. And I think that the hype around the Yankees is intense. They did better last year than we thought they would, make it to the ALCS. Add Stanton to that lineup that was already a very exciting lineup. Expectations are through the roof there in New York. But I'm going to be cliche and I'm going to say it's early, but that is the truth. Let's not overthink this. I saw a tweet from Mark Feinstand of MLB.com that I thought perfectly described this. In 2009, the Yankees lost 8 games to the Red Sox and trailed by 5 games in late June. They ended up winning the AL East by 8 games. It's early.
Yeah, it's definitely early. You said the answer is yes. I would say the answer is actually no. I think the Red Sox were very good going into the season. They've proven to be very good, and I don't think the Yankees are as bad as they are right now. Now, maybe all of the talk about the Yankees took away from what Boston was capable of. We know, they won the division a year ago, but I do think the Yankees are going to turn it around, and I think they've got a streak of like 20 out of 24 coming. You don't really know what baseball teams are until about August.
Either way, it's going to be very exciting. Now to the beautiful game. FIFA was offered a whopping $25 billion with a B dollars from an unknown group of investors from Asia and the Middle East for the Club World Cup and the rights to a proposed global league for all national teams. This according to the New York Times. There wasn't anything actually written down about this mystery consortium. FIFA President Gianni Infantino brought it up at last month's meeting, and there doesn't seem to be much motion on this for now as far as FIFA is concerned, but the idea of a more regular league of national teams is a more interesting thought. So Robin, would you be in favor of that?
Absolutely, I'd be in favor of this. It sounds like a great idea. Now, logistically, it might be impossible due to all the moving parts and all the leagues, but it would be easier for many Americans, I think, to follow. And what's the biggest event in soccer? The World Cup. This would essentially be the World Cup on an annual basis, or however the season would play out. And I understand that might take away from how special the World Cup is, but I would rather have something that's really good every year than something that's amazing every 4 years. And it's also not exactly an apples-to-apples comparison if you're talking about, is the World Cup special because it happens so rarely, like maybe the Olympics, because the Olympics are filled of niche sports, and soccer is a huge mainstream sport. I just think some people have had difficulty latching on to exactly what they're following.
I do think it would be a dream scenario for me. It would make it a lot easier for people to have everything in one place. Seems a lot simpler, and just to be able to compare things and to be able to know when you're watching things. It is impossible, though, with all of the particulars and the way that the seasons go regionally. Everyone's playing at different times. To get all of these players available on the same calendar is nearly impossible. And I do think it might take away from the magic of the World Cup. I think about the times that, every 4 years, everything stops. And, I'm taking off work. I'm going out to the USA bars in the middle of the day and cheering on the team. And everything freezes for that period of time.
Well, it's an excuse to take off from work more often. More big news out of the world of soccer as Roma beat Barcelona 3-0 to complete an improbable comeback in the Champions League and eliminate Barcelona via an aggregate tiebreaker. This is now the 3rd straight year Lionel Messi has lost in the Champions League quarterfinals. I'm on record saying I'd take Ronaldo over Messi Does this change the way you think about that debate?
For me, this only enhances the argument for Ronaldo over Messi. And the way that I would separate these guys is to say big-time players make big-time plays in big-time moments, and Ronaldo is the guy that has done that. He has performed better in those big moments, and I don't see that Messi has proven it against the best in the world. While Messi has a higher goals per match over his career, so potentially showing more consistency, Ronaldo is better in Champions League scoring. He also led Portugal to winning the Euro. Argentina hasn't won anything while Messi's been there. To me, I want to see the guy that separates himself in that big moment, and Messi's going to be at home while Ronaldo's still playing in Champions League.
And as of late, Ronaldo's been elevating his teams as the guy, while Messi has a little bit more help around him and still hasn't quite gotten it done.
Absolutely. Well, Josh Rosen has spoken, and so people are going to find a reason to criticize him. Now the quarterback prospect says he wants to win a lot of titles, saying, quote, "I want to be the winningest QB in NFL history. I want to win the most games and most championships. I'd say 6 titles, but hey, if Tom Brady gets 6, I'll say 7. Robin, is there anything wrong with this?
Of course not. I mean, I've seen Josh Rosen criticized for maybe not wanting it enough because he's interested in other things other than football. Now he's going to get criticized for saying he really wants to win at football. Right. In fact, all of the criticism about Josh Rosen is nonsense. I haven't seen anything that is worth critiquing him about off the field. If you think, concussions are an issue, or you think he might not be the best prospect, that's fair. But I've heard people say, the concerns or issues off the field with him, and that's absurd. Baker Mayfield is compared to Johnny Manziel. That might not be fair, but there's at least a reason for that. There's not a reason for what people are saying about Rosen. Oh, he's a fully formed human being who can articulate his positions. That's nonsense.
Yeah, it drives me crazy that the criticism is he thinks about other things besides football, and he asks a lot of questions about why. The guys who ask why end up being the greatest. They're so smart that they think of new ways to innovate the game. We've seen this many times throughout the years with some of the greats. I think that is a great quality to have. I think Josh Rosen is going to be an amazing pro, and like you said, the reasons we criticize him are so silly. He thinks about life outside of football. Okay.
Yeah, I thought quarterbacks were supposed to be smart.
Isn't that what you want?
Isn't that one of the prerequisites of the position? Later in the show, we'll get some insight on just how good a pro Josh Rosen could be. That from his high school coach. The NBA hands out its season awards way too late, so I'm joined by the crossovers Rohan and Carney to give them out when people still care, to the big one, MVP, and it's a story of the Jameses. Rohan, who do you got, LeBron James or James Harden?
I think this one's pretty obvious, Robin. I got James Harden. I mean, he fits the profile of what we've typically seen from an MVP in the past, right? The best player on the best team. His offensive numbers, I think, just speak for themselves. I mean, around 30 points a game, 9 assists, 5 rebounds. He's doing it all. He's played in enough games. His defense has improved. I know there's all these YouTube videos out there where people want to criticize the defense. He shored up that end of the court. I understand the arguments for LeBron James, but I think when you look at Harden, his team has been so much better in a better conference that it's hard for me to ignore the impact he's had.
But it's not best player on best team award, right? And, I'm not even so sure he's definitively better than Chris Paul. I mean, he's had an incredible season, but they added Chris Paul. They got about 10 games better, which you might expect, right? The Cavs lost Kyrie Irving and are the same as they were a year ago, with Kevin Love missing a huge chunk of the season, with an old roster at the beginning of the season, with Isaiah Thomas sort of sabotaging them when he came back, and then a whole new roster, their coach missing a huge chunk of the season. And LeBron has played in every single game. Harden has missed some, and the Rockets still have a winning record in that time period. I feel like a lot of people want to reward Harden for the last 3 seasons, and I could make that same argument for James, because you could say he could be the MVP every year.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that it's also not the best player award. I mean, if we're talking about valuable and what that definition is, for a huge chunk of the season, I think right up until the last couple weeks, the Cavs were either even or worse with LeBron on the floor, which hasn't happened since his rookie season. That's not to say James is the reason for that, but there's something to be said about this team was at times performing with him better on the bench, which is just absurd for a LeBron-led team. Whereas Harden, yes, they have Chris Paul, and they do great in those Paul-only minutes, but his impact, I think, is just unassailable in that standpoint.
To counter what you just said, though, LeBron was on the bench for such a small sample size, right? And in the fourth quarter, they've been basically unbeatable. He's been the best fourth quarter player. And when Harden has been on the bench, the Rockets have still been quite good all season. So it's not like you have the opposite argument where with Harden where the Rockets fall apart.
Without a doubt. I mean, they're definitely a great team. They're a better team from top to bottom. But I just look at the Cavs. I also just can't forgive those months of January and February where they were awful. And LeBron's effort was clearly not there on both ends of the court. I don't blame you. It's a good pick. I don't think LeBron is as crazy as some people are saying, but he might not even be number 2 on my ballot. Let me just say that.
Well, that's crazy. Come on, Rohan. You can see other crazy things from Rohan and Carney on the Crossover TV on SITV.
January the 16th, 2016, there was a fighter by the name of Deontay Wilder versus another fighter that was from Poland named Arthur Spooker. And between these two fighters, it was a lot of controversy. It was a lot of talk. One fighter from another country thought he was going to be able to destroy the champion, dethrone him, and become the first Polish champion. Then you had the guy, Deontay Wilder from America, the baddest man on the planet, begged to differ. He called his bluff. He said, "Bomb squad!" And the Polish guy said, "I'm going to beat you." It was so much animosity, so much built up with this fight. So when the bell rung, the fight was on. In the ninth round, Deontay Wilder was falling behind. Some say he was losing on all the cards, but they knew he had the power to get out of any fight. He got the eraser, as they called it, and Arthur Spooker bagged him up with the chanting from his Polish people, building him up, and they got him to the point where he attempted to punch, but he made a mistake, and then Deontay Wilder dropped him. He hit him so hard it was like slicing cheese. He dropped and fell, and I thought he was dead 3 to 5 seconds. He left out on the stretcher, but later hours after, he came back to the hotel still in his hospital gown. I don't know how he got out the hospital with that gown still on with his ass out, but he was there. And he said that he wanted to fight again for the title, but not the WBC title.
As we continue our series on coaches who make a difference, I'm joined by Jason Negro, head football coach at the national powerhouse St. John Bosco and former coach of some top quarterback prospect in this year's NFL draft, Josh Rosen. Coach, you've had a lot of talent come through your program. You've coached at multiple All-American games. Where does Rosen rank among players you've coached?
Well, I think without question right now, he's probably, the number one guy at his particular position. At the quarterback spot, it's very unique. For him to be as talented as he is, I think he's the number one guy at that position, and maybe even in all positions. Certainly from a talent standpoint, personal character standpoint, student, he ranks above at the highest for all those.
We know the draft process puts these guys under a microscope. We split hairs to separate between all of these prospects. One criticism we've heard about Rosen is that he needs to be intellectually challenged, if that can even be considered a criticism. We saw Jim Morris say that Rosen wants to know why things are happening. How did you coach Rosen in order to get the best out of him?
Well, I think that what Coach Morris said is exactly accurate in terms of the way Josh is. He's an extreme learner. He's a very cerebral kid, very smart. He's skilled, obviously, not only in the talent standpoint with his physical abilities, but mentally, he's super talented as well. And I think that, as a coach, you have to be able to challenge yourself and to challenge your athletes, from the mental side of the game just as much as you do on the physical side. And Josh is a guy that makes a coach better because he does want to know the why behind things, and he wants to understand, kind of the things that go into the decisions that you're making as a coach. And ultimately, I think you can either do one of two things. You can challenge it and be upset that you have a player that's going to challenge, some of the things that you're doing, or you can embrace it and you can become a better coach as a result. And I think that's something that we did here at St. John Bosco. And we had great results because we won a lot of games with Josh during his 4 years here.
And people have also questioned his love of the game, saying he has outside interests. Again, if that can be considered a criticism. How would you respond to those who question if he likes football enough?
Well, I think that just comes from people that don't really understand Josh. I think he completely embraces football. He loves the sport. He loves the whole grind behind getting prepared for games. Everything that he does, he puts into his craft and trying to be the best that he possibly can be. And I think it's just misunderstood. Josh is a kid from Southern California, and there's a lot to do here. He had an opportunity to play multiple sports. He was a tennis player here for a year at St. John Bosco as well. And, he was actively involved in the community here at our school. So there's a lot of stuff to do. And, living and growing up in Southern California on the West Side, gives him an opportunity to do a lot of things. And being a part of UCLA was no different. So it's just a misunderstanding. We had an opportunity to work for Josh for about 5 years. And during those 5 years, we never questioned whether he loved the game or not.
All right, you know him pretty well. You've seen him develop during your time and then also at UCLA. How have you seen him grow?
I think his maturity has grown a lot, over the past, I think, 8 or 9 years that I've known Josh. He's continued to progress physically. Obviously, the social media aspect has really been challenging, I think, because he's been thrust into the scene. And as social media continues to grow, obviously the scrutiny and people starting to criticize, your athletes as a result of it. But overall, I think he's handled it very well, and he's going to continue to progress as he moves into the NFL. Which team do you think is the best fit for him at the next level? Honestly, I don't know. Steelers, I hope, because that's my team. But I don't think that'll happen. I think he's probably going to go to the Giants or the Jets. I think, Josh is kind of a New York kid. He's a big city guy. He's somebody that can handle and embrace, obviously, all the things that come with that. And, I certainly believe that he's going to be a guy that's going to thrive in a big marketplace because he's so smart. He can deal with the media. He can manage his time well. And I think that, he's a diamond, and he's going to end up making some franchise extremely happy. We're really looking forward to seeing how all of that unfolds in the NFL draft. Coach Jason Negro, thanks so much for taking some time, giving us some insight on Josh Rosen. Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. And, hopefully we'll have an opportunity to talk down the road again when he makes Hall of Fame.
Yesterday, I read a headline I never expected to see. Patriots owner Robert Kraft visited Meek Mill in state prison. Obviously, the Free Meek movement has been building momentum, but are you surprised to see Kraft on board? Oh, I love this. The best friends. Yeah, I am, but I love it. I think it's great to see a guy like Robert Kraft investing in someone like Meek Mill in this cause. And he said after that he comes away more and more impressed with Meek Mill and more determined that criminal justice reform is necessary. And I think that this is how change happens, is when the privileged and the powerful in this country take an interest in those causes. So I love seeing this. Yeah, criminal justice reform is the big cause here, but yeah, Meek Mill obviously has been an entryway. And I think a lot of these guys are starting to hear more about this due to their players or connections they may have with celebrities. And Philadelphia is so associated with Meek, and yes, with the Eagles winning, his Dreams and Nightmares intro was basically their official theme song. So Robert Kraft is going to hear about that. He's also close friends with Michael Rubin, one of the Sixers owners, right, who has been championing Meek Mill's cause. And I've seen Robert Kraft in photos at the Rock Nation brunches. And, Meek Mill is a Rock Nation artist. So eventually maybe all that stuff got to Robert Kraft, and he felt, he could go out and actually do something to try and make something happen here. Right, and well, he did visit with Michael Rubin, and like you said, that has been kind of the Philadelphia associated with Meek Mill and the Eagles beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Like you said, there might be some tension there. I think it shows a lot about who Robert Kraft is, that he's doing something like this. Does New England have an artist that they're associated with? They're going to have to find one so that they can have this as their guy. I think that would be really fun to see. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, you can check out SI Now Live on Twitter for all of the latest videos and updates throughout the day. See you there.